All right. It says we are live, and I want to welcome everybody to EdTech in the Bend. And we are excited to have some math fun with you guys today. We've got Maria with us, who is from a rival high school down the street from me, but it's not during the school year and it's not a sports season. So we're all in this together. So I first want to have everybody start introducing themselves, tell us where you're from and your name and where you're watching and how much fun you're having. So we just finished Matt Miller's session, and you can watch this on YouTube and on Facebook. And now it's time for Allison and I to scoot out of the way and hand it over to Maria.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Maria. I teach at John Adams High School here in South Bend. Today, we're going to talk about math and how I implemented some of the protocols into my classroom. Okay. So this is 3E math, EdTech, engagement, and excitement. So why I use Edu Protocols. My students seem to be checked out and tired of the mundane of the daily schedule in our classroom. I wanted something exciting and engaging to do with them that would be easily implemented, but I also didn't want it to consume too much of my time in preparing. I knew for student emotional learning, routine was vital, and to move things into long-term memory, repetition was also needed. So as I was looking around for things to implement, I found Edu Protocols. They changed the dynamic of my classroom. I found students were more excited to do the activities because they were fast-paced. They included group and partner work, and sometimes they had a fun little twist to them. They loved the routine. They didn't feel like the activities were numbing or anything like that. I kept on getting comments how it was nice to do something different. Once I implemented the protocols, I found that I was planning less. I had more time for class work to clear up confusions and to ensure the students were truly understanding the concepts. They were working to master the content and not just trying to get the thing done. Students were collaborating with each other, the class culture was changing, they were building their own community of learners, helping each other work together and support each other. So in this presentation, I am going to introduce 6 protocols that I was doing in my classroom with my students. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to post them. And if not, towards the end, I can answer any questions you have. I'm going to share this presentation with Seth, and so he can put it out there for everybody because I have links to all these PowerPoints or Google Slides is what I used for you guys to implement in your own classrooms if you like. So the first thing I want to talk about is math reps. So math reps is a protocol that was adapted by person Lisa Nowitzki, hopefully I said that right, from John's 8-part protocol. She used his template idea to help students practice numbers. So in his ideas, he used the 8 parts of speech to help the students generate a paragraph, and the template stayed the same, and the content was the only thing different. So she used the same thing, and she made this number of the day. So she would give this number of the day, and the students would do the same repetition practice of the concepts that he needed to do, and they did this daily, and it helped gear them towards mastery. So I started using this in my classroom, and the first thing I started with, even though I teach high school, is fractions. And this is a template I used. As you can see, there are 3 numbers that we would use. I would give them 2 fractions and a whole number. That would change every day. So I would give them 3 new numbers, and they would go on and fill out all this. I made this template in Google Drawings. And in class, when we were in person before COVID, I would just print this out on tutor page, and I would give the students a half sheet of paper, and we would do this during the lab. So for bell work during the lab, they would come in, I would give them 3 numbers, I would give them the paper, and they would go. It got to the point where they were getting quicker and quicker. It was getting easier for them. They just needed like redirection, maybe one thing, especially the whole numbers and fractions. Subtraction and addition is the thing that we're stumping them. And so I was seeing a major improvement, and then COVID happened and things got crazy. But for class, when I introduced this, I spent the whole first week, and it took quite a while, I'm going to be honest, because I would go step by step over everything on how to do it. The kids really needed that. They were writing notes and were very attentive. After a while, they just started going and filling out, and they would just say, hey, what are the new numbers? And they would just get the numbers and they would go. What ended up happening was also when COVID happened, I got an email from a student asking me for the template that she wanted to share with her grandmother who needed practice on fractions as well. And she thought it was very useful. That was nice to see that it was working and they liked it. If you don't want to create this on your own, there's actually a lot of resources online for these types of things already. Lisa Nowitzki has quite a few of them. It wasn't very hard to create in Google Drawings, and I was trying to rack my brain on how I was going to implement this into e-learning. And so I like the idea. I like how I have this organized, and I was just going to give them 3 numbers of the day. A lot of kids might not have printers to be able to print this off at home, but they have a sheet of paper, and they could divide that into the 4 quadrants: 1 corner addition, 1 corner subtraction, 1 corner multiplication, and the other one division, and they can just go. And so I was going to spend the first week going through this slowly and having them practice daily. Once the class has mastered this, I'm waiting for the whole class, every student, to master fractions before I move on to something else. And so we will keep on doing this, and kids will get faster and faster before we work on another thing. I have signed numbers on here as another example of things that that kids could work on. And I also have this multiplication, depending on what level you're at. There's quite a few of them, like I said, online. And in my PowerPoint, I do have links to websites for like Lisa Nowitzki, where she has hers, and in her drive, you can see they're divided into classes, grade levels. And so this is very, very nice and very useful. So I'm trying not to go too fast. I'm going to be honest, I talk very fast, and it's something I am working on. I can't really see comments. The next thing we're going to talk about is the FRAIR model. Now, the FRAIR model is dealing with vocabulary. It helps students get a deeper understanding of it. I use this as a activation before we started a new unit. I built this Google slide presentation that I just changed the chapter name, and I would put it into my Google Classroom. I shared it as a classroom, and so all the kids would edit this one presentation. And so what I did was I made a list of all the vocabulary in that chapter relevant, or maybe even old vocabulary that was relevant to the current chapter, and I would assign them in pairs. So each pair of students would get 1 vocabulary word they would work on. And after I shared the Google slide and passed out the vocabulary word, I would give them 5 minutes to fill out their slide. And they always have the same slide number. So when we did this, they knew they were always, this group was slide 1, this group was slide 2. And so it was a lot quicker. After the 5 minutes, I said 5 minutes are up. They needed to stop. I would present the Google slide and I would have the students stand up and present. And they would go through and talk in front of their classmates and read off their example explaining things. This is the model I have on mine. So the students would put the vocabulary word in the triangle and they would spend their 5 minutes filling out the rest. They would look in their textbook and online for definitions and examples and characteristics, trying to come up with what the word meant. And this helped activate, hey, look at this is what we're working on in class, this next unit. At first, the students were nervous. Some of them were really nervous to talk in front of their classmates. But a lot of these protocols, I would have them talk in front of their classmates. And it was only 1 minute. I would give them 1 minute to do it. 1 minute, time's up, let's go on to the next group. And it was very fast paced, boom, 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 boom. And so I said, so after a while, the kids were shy and quiet, but then eventually you could see the change in them. They were more at ease being able to talk in front of the peers, which is another thing I really, really enjoyed. Here's an example of one that my students created. We were dealing with a system of equations. And so this pair of students filled this out. They went in the front and they presented it. And so when we were going over the unit and this came up, this was easily attached to my slide presentation for their notes. And we didn't have to spend a lot of time on the new vocabulary because they had already seen it. The next one that I want to talk about is this right? This one I really, really enjoyed. It is actually from Calvin Klein. He's actually presenting later on this week, and I just made this slide based on his idea. It's a wonderful idea. You should tune into his. I think his is on Friday. It's called Math Smashing. So he presented this at the HEE conference. In this protocol, in this slideshow, students are going to use their camera. We work with Chromebooks. So they'll use their Chromebook camera to take a picture of a problem and post it on their slide. And we would do this after maybe an in-class activity or homework the next day. After bell work, we would do is this right? And they would post pictures of some things they were having a problem with. So in the slide presentation, it's this directions. They would choose 1 or 2 problems from their homework that they might not have understood. I did have students say, oh no, miss, I got everything. I understood the whole thing. I didn't have problems on anything. And so I would tell them, then you need to post at least 1 problem that took you the longest that you struggled in. And what ended up happening is they were confident, but it turns out that most of the time they had maybe slight errors in it and they needed their peers to look over the stuff. So I would actually pass out Post-its or a scratch piece of paper that I had to the students. And with virtually, you can do this at home too. So they would have to just write out their problem and they would use their device camera, and you can see on, oh, actually, it's probably on a different slide. I have a slide that shows them how to use their device camera in their Chromebook to post the picture. And each student always had the same number of slides. So on my slides, I have a number student 1, student 2, student 3. And they were more than welcome to go in and put their name, but they didn't have to because I always had the same students with the same numbers. So they would post it, everybody would post their problems. They would have to go back and use the comments and comment on their peers' slide. And so they would give them feedback. let me see if I can go. Next is we're going to talk about the camera. I want to see if we have any comments or questions on is this right so far. Do I have any questions on the is this right? Is it confusing? Let me see. Okay, well, we're going to keep going then. So on the slide, I have that titled, Is This Right? And then they will click, the next slide is the directions on what they have to do. And it was only maybe the first 1 or 2 times. After a while, they knew what they did, what they were supposed to do. They knew their slide number, and they would just go and do it. It turned out to be a very quick thing after a while. So on the Chromebook, this is the slide they see on how to enable and take the pictures. I did have students who didn't push the allow button when the Google asked them to let them use the camera, and that caused a major problem. So making sure that students push allow is major for this. I encourage my students to get their camera fixed because a lot of these protocols, I like using this one and another one, have the use of the camera. And if they couldn't use the camera, they said, oh, miss, I couldn't do it, but they can use their phone if you allow that, or their peers. Their peers have computers, and it will be a little difficult now with social distancing, but at the time, I would just say, have your peer use the camera, or even I would just take a picture and insert it, and they would have to go in and comment. So on this slide that I will share with you at the end, hopefully Seth will get it out to you all, I have sentence starters to make their comments more productive, because if they don't have sentence starters, they'll just say, oh, you're right or you're wrong, and they'll be short and sweet, and it won't really be as productive as I would like. And so I did include the sentence starters for the students to use in order to help their comments be more productive. So in class, what I did notice was it helped build relationships with their peers. Some students just would stick with their little group of friends and wouldn't really talk to each other, but they would easily comment on their slides, and it was helping with the collaboration. I also I did have some students who felt like they were the only ones struggling. They were the only ones not getting this. And so they would post their question and feel silly or whatever, confidence was low. But it turns out some of the comments they would receive was, hey, I struggled in this too. Oh, this was hard for me too. So it helped boost their confidence, help them understand that they weren't the only ones struggling, that everybody was struggling. Or maybe somebody else was struggling on the same thing. Because we would use this anytime. The beginning of a unit, it was just something I liked using. Let's see if I have any comments. What are some tricks or tips you found helpful to keep the students on task with a shared document? I'm going to be honest. For a model that I generated, at first, I did have one student messed up everything and deleted the whole presentation. And so what ended up happening was I told the students, okay, now we're going to just do something else. We're going to go on, and I just started the unit. And then a lot of kids were grumbling, very disappointed. They were actually having really fun. They were saying, oh man, this is really, really fun. I was looking forward to going in front of the class. And so I said, if you guys can't do this, we won't do this. You guys have to be mature and stay on task. And I need to trust you that you're not going to mess the slide up for anybody. And after that, the second time we did something like this, we didn't have a problem. The kids actually spent a lot of time trying to figure out who was at fault, who deleted everything. Because in Google Slide, the shared slide, they could see a history of the kids and the last person who edited. And so they were actually really, really upset. So after that incident, I didn't really have a problem because they enjoyed the activity and liked that it was different and didn't want to go back to what we were doing. And I said, well, we can do things like this, but you guys have to do what you're supposed to. So that helped. Any other questions? Teresa said that she used this method to encourage testing, studying for tests. Okay. Sentence starters are a great idea from Shelley. I do really like the sentence starters as well because I did find that some of the sentences my students were using were very short. There are some students who just want to get it done and aren't that into it. So including this, I think, will help it be geared better math discussions and stuff. So I really do enjoy it. I want to show you what the slides look like. So on this presentation or this slideshow, you'll have the title again. Then you'll see, the students will see the directions. And then the camera instructions that is honestly only needed maybe the first or second time, but it still stays there. And then I have the sentence starters. And at the end, I have a bunch of slides. This is a student example, we'll go back to it, that are numbered. So one slide will say student 1, and it has a blank screen where they'll just put their problems on their Post-it or their scrap sheet of paper. And the next slide will say student 2, and then student 3, and it goes on to 30. So I made it to 30. I just copied the slide, and you could paste and make another one and just change the 30 to 31, 32 to 35, however many you need. I just have up to 30 on most of these slides that I created for the students. And so it's literally just a blank screen with the student numbers. So some students didn't want to change their number and put their name on it because they're a little shy. So assigning the same number to the same student will help keep everything more private. The comments do show their name, and I did say that, and I said I want to see your name, and I would give them credit because I would see their name like that. I said you had to use the comment features as directions so we could see their name. So this is an example of what one of my students did. They took their Post-it, one of the problems that they had on the assignment, and just posted it like this. They took a picture of it and put it on their screen, and then students would comment on it. So some students put 2, some students put 1. The comments, you can change the number of comments that you assign the students to give. The more you make them comment, the longer this activity will take. As a in my view, this was really helpful because it was a quick snap of all the things the students were struggling on. I didn't have to go through sheets and sheets and sheets of papers looking at everything one by one. It was on one place, and I could see, okay, most of the students struggled on number 10 or number 12. It was really quick, and it was very easy actually for me to go in and comment on it as well. And I did make a conscious effort in commenting on everybody's slide at least one time. It saved time and stress for me, and it was very useful seeing what the students struggled on for me and for them. Let's see if I have any more comments before we move on to the next one. Okay. So the next one I want to talk about is the Iron Chef protocol. Now, the Iron Chef protocol, we did an activity in class as teachers, and I wanted to implement it, and I looked at the book, and I was having a hard time seeing how I was going to implement this in my classroom because it seemed more geared towards English or the humanities and not really math. So I was trying to rack my brain. It's a kind of a jigsaw kind of protocol that was used to learn new content. And I just didn't want to do that for math, at least not in that way. So what I end up doing is making it more of a review for an assessment, either a quiz or a test. And I use the Iron Chef protocol in that way. So what they do is you put your students in groups of 3 or 4. And we have 1 slide per student. So in this, if I had a group of 3, they would choose 3 slides and just delete the 4th one. If they have 4, each student would be assigned 1 slide that they have to fill it out. So in their slides, there were directions on what needed to be included on it. I took the major concepts of the chapter or something they were going to be tested on, had them on scrap pieces of paper. Once they were in groups, I passed them out to the group, and that's what they needed to work out, and that's what their Iron Chef would be. I gave them 15 minutes to complete their slide. So I passed out the sheets of paper with whatever they're working on, graphing lines or standard form or whatever that was in that chapter, and I gave it to them. They started working on the slide, and I had a major question. On each slide is a secret ingredient, and they're saying, "Oh, Miss, what's the secret ingredient?" I would say, "Don't worry about it. I'll call it out as you're working." And so they just said, "Okay," and they just started working on their presentations. After they stopped the presentations, what they were going to do and what they did do is present them in front of the class, and it's timed. I gave them 2 minutes to present the presentation, and then there was 4 students that were chosen, and they had a little board. They would just grade the students, and the kids were really, some of them were really stressed out thinking that was going to be their grade for the assignment. And I said, "Oh no, I'm going to grade it as they're grading it." It was just a fun little aspect for the students to do. So there were 4 students. They would judge their slides, and I had this and actually projected it as they were working on it. And actually I had to write it on the board because when I was projecting their presentations, we couldn't see it anymore. And so they would grade on accuracy of whatever concept they were assigned to. The visual appeal, I had some really nice ones. They would do transitions, and it was a beautiful presentation. And how they spoke. A lot of kids were nervous on that, but there were a group of 4, and I said, if you guys can decide who speaks and who doesn't speak, but I wanted all of them up there. And after a while, like I said, a lot of these I had them presenting in front of each other, and they started getting more comfortable. Even the ones who were really shy and quiet and was speaking really softly and nobody could really hear them. After a while, they learned to speak louder, and you could see they were getting more confident because a lot of these I had required them to go in front of their peers and present it. So I'm hoping this isn't overwhelming. It's like I think this one is like a lot. So I'm going to go over it one more time. So I put the students in groups of 3 or 4. I told them each student had to do and edit 1 slide, and that their requirements were going to be on the slide. I would pass out little sheets of paper with whatever concept that they were assigned and pass them out. I set the timer for 15 minutes and told the students to go. While they're working, I called out the secret ingredient. Now, the secret ingredient is something fun that they put in the presentation. I told them they really didn't have to be related to their concept. It was just, it needed to be included. And I did memes. You could do football, basketball, music, video, any random thing you can think of, and have them put it on their slide. So as they were working, I said, okay, listen up, students, your secret ingredient is going to be memes. I ended up having a trouble with that because I didn't even realize some of the kids were having a hard time accessing memes because they were blocked. But they I don't know how, but they found a way and they implemented memes to it. I said each slide has to contain a meme, and they were just finding things. It was very fun. After they were finished, I said, time's up. I had them share the presentation with me, and I would project it. And then they would go up, and I would sign, okay, this group go first, that group go first, and they would go up, do the presentation, 2 minutes. Judges, what do you think? And they would grade them, and then some kids, grumbling, and it was a fun old time. And it was nice. I didn't have the problem of somebody messing this up for other people, because what I did is I shared this on my Google Classroom, just one of them, and I told the group leaders that they needed to make a copy of it, and I walked them through on how to make a copy of the entire presentation and share it with each member of their group. They would share it with the group, and then I said, and you have to share it with me. So each group would have a copy of one presentation that they got off the Google Classroom, and they shared it with everybody and myself. I would go around and help them if needed. For this step, I did project how to do it as well. And so I didn't have that problem as people messing up each other's slides, because it was their own. So in this one, that wasn't a problem. So as I said, I use this for review of a concept. And so each of these is one slide. So one slide, their title would be facts. They had to name 3 or 4 facts, and I wanted them to go over one common mistake people might do in their concept. They had to include a picture and the secret ingredient that I would call out during their work time. Another slide was a step-by-step example in solving it. They already knew how to take a picture of their work. So some of them just wrote it out and took a picture and put it on their slides. I wanted them to have an image, and that was their image. And then the secret ingredient. And another one was an example, a full one worked out, the image and the secret ingredient. Now the difference was the example is a problem worked out, and the step-by-step is an explanation on how to solve that concept or do a type of that problem. And then the last one was something I thought was fun, math in everyday life, and they would take their concept and try to find how they use that in their daily life, or how it was applied, and an image with the secret ingredient. What ended up happening was that one was the one that would always go. So if I had a group of 3 students, the one they decided they weren't going to do was math in everyday life. One group did surprise me and included the math in everyday and just didn't do another one. So I did find that was one of them that they tried to avoid. So let's see if I have any questions on. Ben said it's a good way to ensure that all group members contribute and hold each other accountable. Yep. Shows different strategies. Oh, Lisa's on here. She's the one that did the Edu Protocol math reps. I would give them a grade on this. I did more of a participation grade, since this was something that we did before an exam. We presented this. Time was of an essence. I wanted every group to go and present, and did this, so it was very fast paced. First group go, I gave them their time, set an alarm and everything. It's like, okay, if they were done, they were done. If they weren't, we're moving on. Students would grade them. Okay, next group. And I did keep this very fast paced because I wanted them to see every type of concept that they were going to be assessed on. I wanted to show you an example of just one of the slides that students did. This is the meme that he decided to post, and we were doing slope and linear equations in this chapter. And so sometimes I had to break this down into the most like basic concept. You're going to do this, and then you're going to graph it, and then you're going to, and so breaking it down to every little thing. Okay, the next one, if you have any questions, I'll take any questions. And if not, I have 2 more to go that I want to go over before our time is up. Let me see. Okay. I really did enjoy this activity. The kids really enjoyed this activity, the Iron Chef math. I could see you might being able to use this if there was one concept, maybe like dealing with shapes and different shapes and somebody doing each shape. It was really hard for me to try to figure out some way to implement this as a learning instead of as a review, but the students really did enjoy this. Now the next one is called Stunt. Stunt is going to be similar to Is This Right? I did this after the kids practiced the concept a lot. It was towards the end, so they knew they should know what they're doing. It was a good way for me to see who really knew what and what they needed to work on, because in this activity, they would take a problem, and this can be a textbook problem, worksheet, workbook, whatever you want, and they would have to purposely make a mistake somewhere in that problem. And their goal was to try to stump their classmates. This was more of a game type thing. The kids really did enjoy it. So the first slide, you saw the title slide, and then the next thing you'll see is the directions. So again, they would take their Post-it or scrap piece of paper, and they only did one question. So they would write down their question and purposely make a mistake and solve it incorrectly to try to confuse each other. And then number 2 shows them, again, reviews how to post a image onto their slide number. And again, if Ben was slide 1, student 1, he would always be student 1. So when we even did this one, so if he was student 1, Is This Right? He would also be student 1. So he was always going to be student 1 in any of these 2 types of activities. So they didn't really have to put their name. The kids weren't shy about putting their name on this one because they did want to be the one to confuse their classmates. Students love trying to confuse each other, trying to stump the smart one and whatnot, and create problems to try to confuse each other. So they would add their comments. I did have them comment on 4 other students. You can change that number to 2, 3. The more you have, the longer this activity will take. I would more generally do an in-class activity. They would work on stuff, and then at the end, we would do Stunt. And so they had already practiced some of the problems that we were working on, and they would just take one of those. I did tell them to put their number on it. So if they were doing number 3, do number 3, because a lot of kids wanted to reference their own work and compare it with theirs, with the one Post-it. So having them put the problem number was also very useful. I also included sentence starters since they do need a comment on each other's work in this one. They have to say if what is incorrect or correct, and then they have to actually correct the problem. You made a mistake here, and you actually needed to do this. And so that is what they needed to do. And so these are sentence starters that is also in the slides for the students to incorporate and use to make their comments more productive, if that makes sense. I'm going to check if we have any questions on Stump so far. The secret ingredients I use for live to teach was like in March, it would be March Madness, basketball, video, funny picture, comic strip. It could be anything you can come up with. Anything fun. It doesn't have to be related to their concept they're doing. It's just something fun that they wanted that made it more interesting. Spelling, this activity can easily work with e-learning. I did find this activity very useful. I could see it also going for e-learning very easily because they just take a piece of paper they have at home. So you assign these problems online or whatever your platform is going to have to be, and they're going to choose one of those problems they did and just post it. So this can be done virtually very easily. So I would take this presentation and I have on my drive, is this right? Oh no, actually this is Stumped original. And so I would get my original and make a copy of the entire presentation and retitle it the date with the class period and just post that new one into the Google Classroom. And there was just one slide presentation. All students would edit the slide, and they would go in and do this. After that first incident with the firm model, like I said, I really didn't have a problem because I mentioned it to all my classes, that incident, and stated that if they weren't going to be able to do it, we would just do something else. And I just moved on to my backup plan, and we did what we did. So I never had this problem with the shared slide anymore. And like I said, the students would always have the same number. This is an example of one of my students. She actually was very successful in stumping all of her classmates. Since I had the classmates only comment on 4, I actually had to ask one of my students, hey, I know you did your 4 already, but can you do this one? And I said, do student 3 or whatever her student was, and to see if they could find her mistake. The problem I think that she had is she had the right answers, but there was a mistake. I don't know if you can see, but she ended up making a careless mistake and changed the negative 26 into 20 on the bottom part of her answer. This was in system of equations. She was so proud of herself. Nobody could figure out what she had done. Nobody could see where she had made a mistake. And this is a good time to give them a little prize for doing it correctly. A piece of candy, extra bonus points, whatever you have on hand. Great job. Announce it to the class. Everybody make this huge deal out of it. Hey, so-and-so was successful in stumping all of you. And so she gets boom, this, and you would just give her her little mini prize. She actually wouldn't stop talking about the fact that she was able to stump everybody. The next day she came in, oh, miss, I did a really good job stumping everybody, didn't I? And so she was just super, super proud of herself. It was wonderful. So this is fun. I can see this hopefully building that class relationship, even if we're doing e-learning if you're doing e-learning for who knows how very long, because they could comment on the slide and you could say, so-and-so, you just type in what I would have said in person, and I could help build the relationships. They can see each other's comments, and it's a wonderful activity. Like I said, in this one as well, I would see people who wouldn't really interact with each other on this presentation. Okay, so I'm trying to keep my time limit. I only have one more to go, and then we'll take any questions if you have any questions. I want to show you before I go, this is similar to the other one. So I have student 1 all the way to student 30 have their own slide, and they can go in and change student 1 to their name and post their one problem and comment on each other. I like them to use the comments. Now, if you want it to be more private and you don't mind them not seeing who comments on others, they can also put their comments under the speaker notes and write a comment there. So if like for some reason one of your students doesn't have their tech or needs to use a different platform to access the Google slide, they can put their comments on the speaker notes, or although with social distancing now it's hard, before they were able to share things, and in class they would share each other's computer, and since they were using somebody else's computer, they would do their comments under speaker notes instead. The only hiccup that might happen with this is some students generate their mistakes quicker, and so what ended up happening is when they post theirs, the students who are done were commenting on the ones who post first. And so if John, Mike, and Chris finish, they posted theirs, they would comment on each other's, and those who were more not as quick generally might not get comments on theirs. I would encourage my students to comment on each other's and not, so I would tell them, if you see a lot of comments, try to comment on the ones you see that there is no comments. So I did encourage them to comment on the ones that didn't have anybody, because there were kids who were disappointed. Like if they, oh miss, nobody said anything on mine yet, and so I would go around and say, hey, why don't you try hers? And I would just tell them, try slide 5, and they would go to slide 5 and they would try slide 5. So it was easy to implement, since we had already done Is This Right? And we would do this towards the end of a concept. They already knew how to post a picture, and so they were like, oh, this is just like Is This Right? And I said, yeah, it is just like Is This Right? And after a while, on the schedule, I would just put Is This Right or Stumped, and the kids knew what it was. They went into Google Classroom quickly, got onto the presentation quickly, because they already knew the protocol and what we were doing, and it was just quick and easy. These protocols are nice because you can use them with any concept, and the templates stay the same. Like I said, I would take the original, make a copy of the entire slide, rename it the date with the class period, and post that new one into Google Classroom. And I would make all the students being given permission to edit the slide, and we go over the slide and did that. And this one, there's no presentation aspect of it, but the comments and the collaboration were helpful. I want to see. Yes, this is a find the error task, student generated. I do like that. And this is just an easy digital way to do an error analysis. And having them create the error just helps make it more concrete, and you can see those who really get it, and you can see those who maybe need more of your one-on-one help. This does free a lot of time for you, so I was able to go to students who were struggling and help them more. It freed up a lot of my class time for more one-on-one help. Now, the last one I want to go over, I think I still have time, is Caption This. Now, this I haven't used in my classroom yet, but I created this over the summer, and I am looking forward to using this. This is an easy digital activity that you could implement easily. For this slide presentation, each single student will edit a slide. So when I have the Caption This original, I take the original and I make a copy of it, because I like to have my original there on my drive, and I post this into their Google Classroom and assign a slide to each student. So only one student edits the slide at a time, and they put their name, and even if they don't, you assign it to them, so you should be able to see it in your Google Classroom. Now, Caption This is a tool that will allow the students to show how they think through a concept. So these are the instructions that they would do. They will work out a problem on a sheet of paper showing all their work, every single step. You could do this with a multi-step problem or a word problem or anything like that. these are, like I said, easily implemented. You can use your textbook or a worksheet or whatever you're doing, and after they work on it, you can do it towards the end of class. You can do it in the beginning of class, and you can say, hey, I want you to take out so-and-so assignments, and I want you to caption that. And so they would take their problem, one problem on a separate sheet of paper or a Post-it. They would show their work, take a picture of their work, post it on the last slide, and they would caption it. I want to show you an example on what I mean. This has different shapes on slides, and they would just take a shape and copy and paste it, and then type in the shape to explain the steps they did this. After they're done, there's this reflection that I thought was nice to do, where they would reflect on their work and say if it was hard, it was easy, and you can tell them, you know, the only person seeing this is me and you, so be honest, and you can say how they really feel. So the first one is the title, the next one is the directions, and then I have 3 different slides of shapes and things they could use to describe their steps. So this one is full of different arrows, and they could use these, or they could find their own in the tool section, and they can insert their own arrow. So they would take us, say I want to use this arrow, I would click it, I would copy it, I would go to my image and paste it, and then I could type in that arrow. A neat little trick that they can do is if they double click on the image, they can automatically start typing in that shape. They won't really need to put a text box in that shape. It would just allow them to start typing. So these are call outs. These would be good for their reflection piece when I want them to state or reflect on that problem, or maybe that concept or that assignment that they've done. They would just use one of these call outs, a quick, easy click, copy, click, paste on their problem, and they could do a call out. These are extras that I thought might be useful for them to use. There's a bunch of different shapes. Since this is a Google slide presentation, they would just go into their insert button. Like I would go into this one, shapes, and I could just insert a different shape for them if they wanted to use a different shape. Here's an example I have on there so the students know what's expected of them and what I mean about step-by-step. This is just a one variable multi-step problem, usually one variable, and I did it step-by-step on a sheet of paper. I posted it, and then I wrote in each little arrow what I did. And I used a little call out right here so I could see the answer. And this is the reflection part. They might not have a Bitmoji, but this little thought bubble would be, they could just put it anywhere and say, and be honest on what they were having a hard time with. If this was hard, I got confused, miss, and they can just say what they think. Oh no, miss, this was so easy, I can't, yeah, we need to just move on, or whatever they're thinking, however confident or whatnot they are. I want to see if I have any comments on this one. Yeah, a lot of these protocols, like this Caption, this, just before my presentation, he had mentioned it towards the end, and his, that is not math related, he would caption a picture. And in this case, we are captioning a step-by-step problem. This I'm looking forward to using. I haven't used it yet in my classroom, but I can see the usefulness in it. And what I really would like to do this is on word problems. So if we do any word problems, I would ask them probably to put the number of their word problem. So this is number 2 in their textbook or workbook or whatever you have. If we did a whole day of word problems, I would have them caption one of the word problems, because the students sometimes skip steps, and this would be able, on my end as the teacher, an easy way to see what part they're struggling on when it comes to whatever step-by-step problem that it is. So This, again, I have a link at the end of the presentation to these slides that you can have. I personally myself, I said this before, I like to keep the originals, and I would just probably make a copy of the original, title it the assignment with the date. So whatever, chapter 6.1, and then the date, and so they know it's assignment 6.1 or whatever they're doing. A lot of these protocols I like because they're easily implemented with whatever you're already doing. So if you're a worksheet type of person and you give a lot of worksheets, a lot of this you can use those worksheets and just take it a step further. So if you have, maybe if you use some kind of online program, you can use that and have them implement it, textbook or workbook. This is just something that just adds to what we already are doing in our classrooms and just gears it towards like further into what we're doing. I want to see if we have any comments on caption this or caption that. I keep on changing that thing. On the new one, I did do the double clicking, so it's nice because if I have this, you should just be able to double click and it pops right there that you can type everything in. So they don't really have to add the text box around the shape and try to make it fit perfectly, because all they do is they take their shape and double click it. Like if I wanted to add this arrow, I copy. So I do Command C and R on my computer, and then I go to whatever this is their one, their blank one. Control V to paste, and it pastes right there. I move it to whatever spot I want, and I double click, and then the type button comes in without even having to add a text box, and they can type in whatever they like. I want them to put their name, and even if they forget, since I am adding this to their Google Classroom and assigning this as an assignment, I would assign a presentation to each student, separate presentation to each student, but I just like them to put their name on it. So it's easy for them to go through these already. I would mention in class that they could add whatever shape they want if they would like, because they can just go to here. There are different call outs and different shapes. I honestly just took these and pasted it onto that slide. I did make, I think, one of them because I wanted a bigger text box for them. But they can implement these easily if they don't have something on there that they like. Do you have any questions about this? I'm looking forward, like I said, I haven't used the caption this yet, but I love this idea that John came up with for English and just gearing it towards math.
Great job. Thank you so much, Maria. That was such a great presentation.
So I have links to all these that, I don't know, I'm going to share with you, Seth, and you can put it out there so they could just make a copy. On the last one, I have each thing, it's just a link. As soon as they click on it, it will make a copy for them and add it to whatever drive they have.
I think that's a great idea, and we are going to share Maria's link and so many other people's links with emails that are coming out every day. We'll also email everybody a link to the PGPs. If you didn't notice that, it is in the descriptions of all of these videos. It's also, let's see if I can pull it up real quick. It is also a bit.ly right there at the bottom of your screen. So you guys, everybody that's watching, but what I love about this is also they're watching and participating. And I'm going to just throw up some comments that Maria was doing such a good job presenting. And here is just some of the comments that were said because she was doing such a great job. There was one question that someone said, but also I want to know the answer to. Maria, what is your favorite secret ingredient when it comes to Iron Chef?
I really enjoyed the memes. I thought they were so funny. And even though I told them they didn't have to be related to math, the kids were actually very successful in finding math-related ones, and I thought they were hilarious. So I really like the memes, and as soon as I call out memes, everybody gets excited, and I just can't wait to see it. I'm not really a sports person. I could see a lot of students maybe being into that, but the memes are just something super fun that they were able to implement. I love memes.
Yeah, and you referenced the Edu Protocols book. There's a couple new ones coming out. We've got John coming this afternoon, talking Edu Protocols. Oh.
Wow.
Yep.
And then John and Lisa were watching this. They were commenting. So
I saw Lisa on here. She's the one that comes up with a bunch of these math reps. So she's so creative.
Yeah, look at it. You are amazing. Thanks for sharing. That's from Lisa. That's so cool. Well, we want to thank you again, Maria, for your presentation and all of you guys for attending. As a reminder, all sessions are recorded and will be left on YouTube and Facebook for the next couple of weeks. We here at EdTech in the Bend wish you enjoy the rest of your day and hope to see you back at 1 to learn more about Edu Protocols from John.
thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.